new year, and I hope for a brighter 21 than we had 20 last year. I'm very happy to have here Patricia Hatherly from Australia, Neil Dougan from Australia, Svetlana Popova from Russia, Bettina Schürer from Germany, and we're still waiting for Gautam Arora from India to arrive, and I hope that he does. So let's just start and go forward. I think everybody here knows that, oh, here Gautam is arriving. That Svetlana, Patricia, and Bettina and Gautam are homeopaths, and Neil is a consciousness coach. So we are having a bit of a collegial talk today. Just waiting for Gautam now. And of course, I would like to hear what's going on in the different countries. Hi, Gautam. Nice to have you here. Happy New Year.
Ma'am.
So,
good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
So the different time zones, actually, we have for Bettina, it's the morning. For Svetlana, it's noon. For me, it's noon. For you, it's afternoon.
Have a brilliant day. Have a brilliant day. Have a brilliant day and have a peaceful night.
Yeah. Okay. So just let's talk about 2020 and 21. And I would like to hear your opinions and how you perceive the year and what you're hoping for the next. Who wants to start?
I don't mind.
Gautam, go ahead.
Yeah, to start with, it's basically, I like my usual way is that I would say gratitude towards nature. So for people who are healthy and happy and who have sailed through this COVID times, and I would say peace to the families who have lost their near and dear ones in COVID. And to start with this as a simple prayer, and let our Almighty, the greatest architect of the universe, bless us all, humanity, and living and non-living beings, a very healthy and happy 2021 and the further years ahead. I don't mind new diseases coming up, but we always, as human beings, know that necessity is the mother of invention. So the new disease, whatever disease coming up, we will always try to find a solution for them and help mankind and have peace prevailing all over the world. I just set the dice rolling with this, and then maybe somebody can take over with this.
So did you treat very many COVID patients yourself, Grant?
Yes, ma'am. We have been treating COVID patients since the onset of the disease in India. And even before prophylactics were claimed to have helped patients, it was always, as our Dr. Master Haniman has said, that we have been treating not the diagnosis but the symptoms. So symptomatic treatment has always been administered to the patient. And finally, as the science teaches us, we know that these symptomatic reliefs are not coincidences, but actually forming the totality, which has actually then come down to the same totality. Like even if you talk about bryonia or arsenic or gelsemium or any other drug for that matter.
In Australia, the homeopaths weren't allowed to treat COVID, not that we even saw very much of it, because it has actually not impacted very highly here. And it was mostly in the aged care homes with the elderly, tourists coming in, and everybody was forced to self-isolate and be locked down, and we really shut our clinics for a little while. And we had to treat by this method, Zoom. We weren't allowed to actually see patients anyway in March, April, May. So nobody that I know of saw any COVID here in Australia. I might be wrong. There probably was a little bit, but not that I've heard of. And certainly not officially.
But then actually the government in Australia was very strict enough to have a lockdown, and immediate procedures were set into place.
Absolutely.
Indian population was not that lucky enough, and I think that we had a lot of students and a lot of people coming back to India from all across the world. So then the mutations also came in quite easily.
Yeah. And we can social distance here really easily. It's a big continent and there's lots of space, and it was hot too when it came too. So that all helped.
Yeah, true.
So you were not allowed to treat COVID?
Pardon?
I'm just
not
talking
in Australia.
to Patricia and asking
not in Australia. There are certain kind of communicable diseases we're forced to refer on. They're pretty strict here about what you can and you can't do. Yeah.
The same as in Germany. Very strict what you can do and can't do. And we do not have the advantage of the Indian doctors who are allowed to do quite everything.
Actually, ma'am, I would beg to differ on that, because it was not being allowed to do anything. We all were sailing in the same boat. All the pathies were sailing in the same boat about the unawareness of the disease and unawareness of the causative organism of the disease and how it has to be tackled. So, and if you understand that 2020 was in fact the trial of our EQ, not our IQ. The whole community emotional quotient was actually what was being looked into rather than the intelligent quotient. The all the trial and errors, like all pathies, like in my previous our discussions also we have talked about it, that we all were equally ignorant, so we were trying to scratch each other's back. Nobody claimed anything that this pathy is cured or this pathy is not helped. Everybody tried to put in, because if you take up the basic guideline of immunity which was to be tackled, so from meditation to yoga to swimming pools were closed, but exercising patterns and introspection and all pathies with regards to your natural connections of medicines and Ayurveda and naturopathy, all of them contributed to the part of building the person's immunity in whatever way they could and whatever the patient felt better and comfortable with. So we all were trying for the same thing. So nobody restricted, government didn't restrict anybody as per se that this should not be given. Yes, government did restrict on the use of hydrochloroquine and other drugs, allopathic drugs, which could cause and which had caused a lot of side effects or adverse reactions in patients. And that was restricted because otherwise, if you understand, people want to take the easy way out. So they would just go and take a hydrochloroquine drug from over the counter in a pharmacy and get abused by the same self-prescription. So that was restricted. Otherwise, no doctor was restricted to not give their own pathy.
It'll be interesting to see how the case numbers were in Africa, where people routinely take hydrochloroquine for malaria, and whether that impacted.
No.
But certainly in Australia, the testing for COVID has been through the roof. I would like to know at the end of all of this, how many millions of tests were done here. People just lining up for miles in the heat, and the fear factor is enormous. People are very scared, and our Premier shut the border very drastically, and I just know from locals, she kept us safe, as what people have been talking. They're very scared of it. Because it's, the media has really, horribilized it in a lot of ways, certainly when the elderly were dying, and people are very, very afraid.
But that is what I would say, the testing of our emotional quotient came into being, that the fear is always of the unknown. So, and it is still the unknown cause that we are dealing with.
That's probably why arsenicum was really good as a prophylactic at the beginning.
Ma'am, actually, if we look into that, arsenic was looked into as a prophylactic with, it was misused basically. People were rampantly taking arsenic, and arsenic was off the shelves of pharmacy. So, and then gradually over the period, then bryonia gave good results, and other drugs also came into play.
I was just thinking the arsenic for the fear of disease, the fear of dying.
Yes, yes, yes.
That was what I was thinking, and that it was appropriate for that.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
It would have been good to put it in the drinking water here,
Definitely.
I think.
Definitely. The restlessness of arsenic also was covered with COVID patients, with anxiety, with the other symptoms, physical level also. And if you take into the consideration of the ailments from of ptomaine poisoning or decades food sources, which is given in arsenic, so which was covered with the bats and the source of infection which was originated from. So then that also comes into play with arsenic.
On the whole, it is and was a disease of fear. And I just wonder, Svetlana, how this was in Russia.
Exactly. I was just coming to ask you because I'm sorry, but because Russia had a lot of Russia is a very the winter is very severe over there. So the first theory that came into play was that in winter or in cold temperature the virus would thrive faster or would grow. So I was about to ask that in Russia how did they manage? Because if that theory holds true, whether winter aggravates COVID.
Yes, we have a severe situation in COVID viruses in Russia, and we have two waves of COVID infection. One wave was in spring, yes, and arsenic worked very, very well in this period. And we look at India, and we prescribed arsenicum as prophylactic and as a healing method, healing remedy, yes. And it worked very, very perfect in many, many patients, in prophylactic especially. And adult and very old patients took arsenic, and it worked very, very well. And in the second wave of disease, the second wave, it began from September, October, when school were opened and where children went to the schools. Yes, the second wave began. The arsenic didn't work. I don't know why. I think that it's about the basic of psychologist state of people. People began to go to business, to the work, began to make money, a lot of money, yes, and they wanted to catch the time, yes, wanted to catch the time, and it was the state of bryonia, and bryonia helped very, very deeply in a lot of people. Bryonia and arnica, yes, and artemisia. The remedies from a composite family. Yes, and bryonia. Bryonia is not composita, but composite family. Arnica, cina, chamomilla, artemisia worked very, very well in the second wave of disease, and we look forward to the third wave, and this is about it. It will be, and it is now. It began about the psychic situation, and in this sphere worked very, very deeply constitutional remedies. We don't see now such special remedies from the third wave of COVID, and we use only constitutional remedies, and they work work very, very much better than another symptomatical remedies, constitutional, because the disease went deeply to people and increase the kept situation in the brain, and we need much more different, much more specific remedies for each people. And the chronic diseases are increased, very, very increased now, and that lead to the taken cases much more and to prescribe constitutional remedies. Now that situation in Russia with COVID. And we are homeopaths. We went and we go to the online, deep, very spread online, taking cases very spread now. And the people turned around to the homeopathy much more than previously, because the academic remedies are not official and are not helpful academic remedies, and homeopathy is very, very helpful, and people knew about it and turned around to the homeopathy much better, much more often than previously.
It's interesting that you mentioned the composite, because the sensation of composite is battered, bruised, bashed. And when you look at the role of the media in this, you know, it has been a relentless onslaught of just whipping up the fear, so that people are very oppressed by the whole situation. Well, oppressed in being locked down and having business closed and lives destroyed. So that whole thing about being crushed is very, very apt, very apt.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with you. Yes, I agree with you. You are right. And the mention, the brain condition and the emotional condition are very pressed by this situation, and the people are separated to each other. Yes, are locked to each other, and they are suffer from separation and from the loneliness. This is about composite too.
Yeah.
I think that is where I think Neil can help. I think Neil can help us with that. The sensation of being bashed up mentally and emotionally. I think with the consciousness approach, I think Neil can put us a great bigger and purer light on this.
Well, look, I'm so pleased to hear what you're all talking about, because I knew that I was coming on this call, and I asked the universe for some direction on what I should be talking about. And immediately I had 3 patients arrive, and the patients are suffering from viruses. Now, as Patricia will know, we can't say that there's COVID. It's not possible to say that what the viruses are. But if we think about viruses are just a piece of information. They're a DNA fragment. They're just information. And
this virus hasn't been isolated according to Koch's postulates and anyway, we won't go there.
No, we won't go there. The fact that they've not actually managed to isolate it, I agree. We're not going to talk about that, but but we could, but we won't. The key thing here, though, for me is that with these 3 patients that came to see me in the last couple of days, there is an amazing level of psychosis, so that the patients are psychotic. And earlier on, we saw that absolute tremendous fear, and you were talking about, the remedies that, you were finding useful around that fear, and then it moved on to the next stage. And what I'm wondering from a consciousness perspective is that beaten down experience that you're talking about now appears to be going into a next phase, and the next phase is a psychotic phase. And I just very interested to hear what you've got to say about that. So psychotic, like it's a very strong word, we're talking of a psychiatric condition here. It's not just a psychological issue, it's a psychiatric issue. And we have tremendous upswing in paranoia. We have tremendous upswing in, you know, these personality orders, like, you know, the borderline personality disorder. So like there's a whole range of them. And what these 3 patients gave me this week was an opportunity to talk about this new phase. And it is a new phase where it's a psychological issue is turning into a psychiatric issue. And I believe that this is a very important element of what's happening in terms of, you know, the absolute, well, the migration of the information. So the information started off in one area and it's moved through in a different way, and it's been interacting with people in a different way. And it's now interacting, this information is interacting with people in a further way. Now, whether that actually relates to some mutations, you know, that type of mutation activity within the virus, whether we are dealing with a real virus, you know, like there's many, many questions which can be, you know, asked, and, you know, perhaps it's fruitless to even ask the questions. The more important thing is actually how everybody's responding to it. So we have some information. How are we responding to this information? So that's my question. And my excitement about running into 2021 is that we have this opportunity to actually work with this flow of information with our patients and, you know, to allow this translation to occur. So I'm excited.
Just thinking of an interview I had with Professor Schürer, who said that the problem is not the disease, it's not the virus, it's what we will meet in the next year, in 2021 now, when the society will begin to suffer from the psychological impact of the separation and the lockdown. And that will be much worse, he said.
I think we've had more deaths in Australia from suicide than we've had from COVID, from people having their lives destroyed.
And the economical impact are still to come.
Well, what Neil and Svetlana is saying about from Australia and from Russia, I can also say from Germany. And I would say the paranoia is shown by the regime, because they act, one could say, in a paranoia way, and it transforms into the families, into the people. On the softer side, where I wouldn't say it's a paranoia already on board, I do see that this last wave, I found 2020 had many, many waves, and the last wave brought up very many emotions. First it was hatred, discussion, fire, fire, fire. And now I realize, looking around me, that I do find very many emotions coming up. And that's a point where I put a bit of hope in, because emotions one cannot just put aside, they are there when they are there. And I do wish that people have also the courage to go through their emotions and to take the effort to look on the ground of these emotions. On the physical side, I think what the homeopaths, hopefully also in Germany, will be allowed to do is to act with the vaccine victims. I think there we find, as in suicide and now in vaccine victims coming, many, many victims. COVID, we have COVID running around, of course, but we don't have any more influenza. So I think physically this is far more neglectable than what will come up now with the vaccine victims.
The stronger one, because the stronger one removes the weaker one.
Yeah.
Nature's law being proved. COVID coming in, the influenza going out.
Although you just wonder whether some of it was influenza and was called COVID. I mean, I did read a report just yesterday by a scientist, and you know, he had studied many thousand tests and had them verified by other labs, and he said in every case it was influenza A or influenza B. It had been written down as COVID. So the truth of the matter is beyond us, really.
Yes, I fully agree. I think influenza one doesn't talk about anymore. It's now COVID. That's how the politic wants it. To me, it is a political thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot more to this than meets the eye. Yeah. And do you think we're going to be able to help people who get vaccinated if some of these vaccines are indeed, you know, the novel vaccines of the messenger RNA, you know, working at that level in the body? That's a whole new ball game, and I don't know whether it's going to be so easily reversed.
But with the miasmatic remedies, especially with the
for the immediate
we do
reactions,
have possibilities in the genetic. I do not know. I'm a homeopath for animals, so I can't say too much anyway. But I do have hope in the miasmatic remedies, maybe.
We have vaccinium with us. We have vaccinium with us. We have vaccinium with us. We have medicines. We are equipped for with homeopathy medicines to take up the adverse effects of vaccination, if any.
Yeah, and in vaccines in general, of course. But Patricia was mentioning the RNA vaccines, which are a different story now.
Yeah, I would be suggesting that everybody take Ledum the day of the vaccine to mitigate against some of the toxins entering the body through a needle. That's a routine that I do anyway, but I think it's worthwhile to suggest that.
I believe always in Tuya. With animals, I make best experiences with giving them Tuya when they have to be vaccinated because the owners want it.
And I just want to enter in, as far as I know, already 3 people died from the vaccination, 2 in the UK.
More.
Oh, I think a lot more.
A lot more. Israel has lost, Mexico has lost, USA has lost people, Switzerland has lost the person. There's more. And it'll be more.
How is it with the Sputnik 5 in Russia, Svetlana?
Yes. We have 2 remedies after vaccination now, and this made from vaccine product. This remedy is made from vaccine product, from vaccine. It's like prevention therapy, yes, it's like after vaccination therapy, yes. And we discovered now with in our school with my husband Dima, he's now here. We discovered the remedies from viruses and Manira, bacteria and Manira. Yes, do you know viruses? Remedies from viruses. It's like Lycinum, yes. Pyrogenium, Boeonazotes, Borrelia. Yes, do you know remedies from Borrelia, for example, and from Lycinum? Yes, Lycinum. Yes, and this we think, and we used this remedy now in patients after vaccination too. And we think these remedies will be very, very useful in patient after vaccination, because we see the appearing symptoms. It's like viruses infection, yes, and we can find remedies from viruses and from bacteria and from the azotes. It's like miasmatic remedies, miasmatic, that can be very, very helpful in symptoms after vaccination. What maybe I would like to hear you, what do you think about the situation? bacteria and viruses.
The connection was not too good now, but I think that
What
the Russian homeopaths use bacteria and virus nosodes after the vaccination. And I just wondered about
Yes.
this because this is a quite heavy remedy.
What was that you said?
Yes, yes, yes.
They use
Borrelia
lysinum.
azot, lysinum, yes, lysinum,
Vaccine
Borrelia, yes, Borrelia, maybe you know, Borrelia azot.
Mm-hmm.
Lyme disease azot, yes, and pyrogenium, pyrogenium, yes, exactly.
Thuja helps. Thuja helps in many patients with coming with vaccination adverse effects. Thuja oxycontin, this is a wonderful drug with post-vaccine issues with patients. And then depending on the symptoms, we can look into it. But normally, vaccinum and Thuja, they help a lot of patients with adverse effects of vaccines.
I just wonder, you know, hearing you speaking here, that from a consciousness perspective and the way of actually diagnosing the process that's going on, we could look at the, you know, like the dominant vaccines which are going to be rolled out in Europe and Australia and these places to do with these messenger RNA. But the target of them is very particular, and the target is the spike proteins on the COVID cell, you know, the actual boundary. And, you know, what's that about? Like, what is the actual consciousness of that? And if you drilled into, you know, what is the meaning, what is the purpose, what is the intention of these spike proteins, then you would quite simply be able to actually identify homeopathic remedies which would be able to work. And perhaps it actually is in that sort of no-so type of approach. But it's fundamentally actually getting in there and supporting what's going on with that, because the changes with the mRNA that occur then into the genes, you know, into the DNA of the human, are about what the spike protein does. So like what actually is the intention? What is the purpose? What is the function of the spike protein? Those changes will occur within the DNA of the human. And it becomes an impact in terms of that whole information system of the human. There would be the approach, in my opinion. That would be the approach. That's the route in. That's the route in.
Neil, I have a question with you, that when you talk about consciousness awareness, the people who have lost their near and dear ones, they have this kind of a paranoia which is more on imprint on the subconscious level. So does that also get tackled?
If we talk, there's a whole lot of questions inside what you're asking there. You know, Gautam, there's many questions inside there. Undoubtedly, you know, if we're talking about these vaccines and so on, the vaccines have an impact on the mind at all levels. So from the sub of the subconscious all the way up to the superconscious, the vaccine actually has, because it's a piece of biology, it's a piece of consciousness in its own right, it's impacting on the human in all of those levels. So the human is being impacted on in all those ways. So that would be the first, you know, the answer to the first part of that question. In terms of, you know, how that would then actually result from an information flow. If those people who are, you know, the nearest and dearest have died from, you know, this COVID or flu or whatever it is that they've had, they will respond to a vaccine in a completely different way as a result. So the information that's coming in a vaccine will be responded to in a different way. So it's all consciousness. I hope I'm answering your question.
It's also a big unknown. You know, this is very new territory, and we don't know how individuals are going to respond and what the sequelae will be. We just don't know. And then, of course, when they have their second vaccine, you know, will there be a priming aggravation occur? We don't know. I mean, SARS vaccines and MERS vaccines all had to be abandoned because of that.
Because my query is what I am, my thought process or my query towards the whole issue is that, like when we talk about imprints on the subconscious level, so if with behavioral therapy or with group therapy sessions or with introspection or with consciousness careness, people may tend to get ameliorated by their initial layers or superficial layers of anxiety. But if the impact is on the subconscious level of insecurity, of again a next mutation coming in, or again a next COVID type disease coming in, again a loss of financial loss, again a economical loss. So with these kind of imprints on the subconscious level, will that imprint which is there on the subconscious level not act as a trigger mechanism for further relapse of these diseases?
Guaranteed.
Because if there is an emotional insecurity that we are dealing with over here, the subconscious imprint is already caused an emotional insecurity. So will that be a diathesis, like what we talk about diathesis, tendency to illness? So will that not act as a further diathesis to these kind of relapses?
I believe it's a guarantee. It's a guarantee that will happen. Absolutely.
So here we are looking into a pandemic which further on, maybe 20, 30 years down the lane, when we write Materia Medica books, newer authors will write never well since 2020. That will be one ailment from, which will always be there mentioned in Materia Medica further provings. Never well since then. So it will be never well since 2020.
Definitely, it will be. And I think if people don't meditate on the impermanence of life and of change being the only constant in life, then they will get into trouble.
Yes, you are right.
And if you think of never well since, we are going down the snake remedy line.
Yes.
So it's not all a disaster though. Like there is a potential for a bright future in this, and the bright future is, we're presented with this opportunity to truly understand the psychology and the impacts of psychology in the creation of disease, so the actual disease creation process. And we've got I believe right now in January in 2021, we're sitting right in the midst of the opportunity to really explore and understand psychiatric issues, many psychiatric issues.
Definitely.
And what a wonderful opportunity. This is not a disaster, it's an opportunity. And, we're facing another seemingly huge hurdle with what's going to happen with the vaccinations and these things. It's just more information for us. It's more opportunity.
So we watch and wait like good homeopaths.
Like it is always said, fire is the test of gold, adversities of strong men.
Yeah, it's a big, big challenge. And it will challenge the creativity of humanity.
One of the positive things I think that's going to come of this is people are more kind to each other. There's more local community focus. I know in Australia more people have worked from home, and so that the whole face of the workplace has changed. And I think people have enjoyed that. They're having to get dressed up to go to work and being able to be more relaxed about their working processes. I know, just for an example, I know it happened in lots of places, but where my son lives in his street, they're a very friendly street, and every Sunday at 4 o'clock, people went to the end of their driveways with some deck chairs and, a little table with some cheese and wine, and a man in the middle of the street was a DJ, and he brought out his acoustics and played music, and everybody just sat and listened, and the children all played in the street, and they did that for months. It was a real community, coming together, which was really nice.
Interesting.
Like what Bettina said, that fear of being away from others, the family members, and that would cause problems. But similarly, on the other side, with working community in India, where we hardly meet our family members, so we are just working around and running around the whole place. So this 7 8 months was actually, in fact, a better emotionally comfort zone for everybody, and the whole family was together. Uh, and then these kind of entertainment zones, like what was just mentioned, was seen across the world. Now, when you talk about community coming together, I think the more larger community across the world, people have been unified towards taking up a unified stand towards against this disease. So I think across the world, countries have helped each other, and community like now FutureLink. I would again come back to Sandra and her team. The whole team has this the platform that what we are speaking up now has come up during COVID times. So we have met speakers from across the globe on this platform, and we have shared views. So this is one good thing what towards the homeopathic fraternity that has come up during COVID times.
Definitely, and we wouldn't have done it otherwise. It was the trigger.
Yes.
When Patricia just said that it'll need a lot of good homeopaths for the world, I made me think of Samuel Hahnemann and how far, how wide he spins homeopathy, also in being a psychiatrist for the people, looking in the life surroundings, and not just the belief in the remedies itself. And I think in this sense, it'll need many good homeopaths and many good people who are maybe not homeopaths, who realize and look at what's going on and realize the emotions, realize the state, and make something out of this. And as homeopaths, I think it is very important now to look at the surroundings, at the circumstances, and not just on the symptoms, in the sense of Samuel Hahnemann.
True.
I've just been contemplating, while I've been listening to the wonderful words, I've been contemplating Gautam's question a bit more, and the consciousness that sits in with the spike protein on the virus is about access, and the intention of the vaccine is to cripple access. And so what we're going to need to look at running forward in terms of how we're treating patients is the way in which access is being denied. So we've had separation, we've had control, we've had the need to deny various possibilities, different alternate views, and so on and so forth. All of those things support the process of denying access. And I believe, we would really benefit our patients by, working with the issues around the denial of access. And of course, we need to ask the question, access to what? What is the thing that we are denying access to? Because that vaccine, the real impact of that vaccine is going to be in this type of arena that we're talking about. And there'll be countless disease presentations that relate to the fact that the individual, within aspects of their being, whether it be biology or psychology or consciousness, or however you want to think of it, they are going to be denied access to other aspects of themselves and to the community and to the divine. It's about attacking the opportunity for access. I'd love to hear what you guys have got to think. So that's on the fly. I was just really trying to meditate and understand your question, Gautam, but that would be that's the guts of my answer now.
The big thing about people who will take the vaccine is because they will be scared that they will not have access to work, to travel, to a whole bunch of things that we just take for granted now, because governments will be waving a big stick and say, you cannot. And people have become so browbeaten. This is the composite again. Their will is crushed. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward, because certainly there are a lot of people saying, well, I'd like to wait and see what happens, before I put my hand up for a vaccine, which of course is fair enough, because we don't know what's going to happen. But will you be able to work if you say no to a vaccine? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Even I think the travel industry would be making it compulsory, because that would be the only way that they can force the community to take the vaccine, because the apprehensions of the patient would be there, that listening into the adverse reactions of the vaccines which have been coming up during the trials. So people themselves would have certain kind of, I would say, the um, fear of or apprehension about taking the vaccine. So I think the travel industry, flight carriers would be making it mandatory to take the vaccine before a travel. Like they have made a COVID test to be a compulsion. So they would be taking up this as an opportunity to implement the strict implementation of vaccines before they travel, before anybody travels.
In the county of Salzburg in Austria, they already said that if you don't get the vaccine, you're not allowed to work in hospitals anymore. So it's about access, definitely.
Yeah, government has taken up a pool of collected data about medical professions and like doctors, nurses, ward boys, or all healthcare professions. And government has put into place that these will be the frontline COVID warriors, will be the first one to be administered the vaccines. On a lighter note, there was a humorous suggestion that why not we give vaccines to politicians first, rather than medical frontline workers.
I agree. I did hear that something like 19,000 healthcare workers in England have already refused it. So that's a lot of people. I mean, if that number really grows and they're going to be needing staff, you know, they're going to have to think again.
Yeah.
I already got calls from people who cancel their work because they don't want to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
They prefer keeping the job. And just the same in Austria, we got the vaccination for the medical personnel, and the medical personnel said, why not vaccinating the politicians first, because we will be needed, the politicians, not so much. The same token, actually. So this is an interesting thing coming up, and I'm getting about 2 to 3 calls each week from people who say they want to leave Germany, they want to leave Austria, they want to change their way of life, they want to be more sovereign, more autonomous, and want to go to another lifestyle, and just don't know how to do it, and are very afraid. Very afraid. They, in their heart, they feel it's about a simple, autonomous lifestyle in a warm country, but they're very scared to go there. But again, we see this compulsory change, which seems to be the only constant in life. Change and change and change. And it's interesting that I get so many calls at the moment.
I think Neil can help them in that way, because for them, they'll have to understand that fear is within them. So wherever they stay, in whichever part of the world, that fear is gonna remain with them. So first they'll have to bring, I think Neil, you'll have to take charge over here with such kind of patients, and you'll have to recharge their conscious into the state of awareness that the relative, it cannot be relative. The fear remains with them wherever they stay.
You take the fear wherever you go.
Yeah, it will go with you.
And once a word about changing. Can I say?
Please.
Yes. Yes, and we look at the proving. It's like a type of changing, and we say about proving therapy, about provings like a type of psychotherapy, and we teach our children and our students students to make proving and to look at the life like a product of proving. And you said that we have every day changing, every day is changing, and the proving is changing too. And if we can look at the life like a process of proving, it will be much easier to live, really. And we practice with psychotherapy in our school in Moscow, and it's very excellent results, really. We have a group of doctors and non-doctors. It's about 20 people, and we use and we arrange proving every week. Every Thursday we meet always and make trituration proving, and we look at the life through the proving's view, through the changing view, through the like a controlled stress. Understand me? Yeah, it's like a controlled stress. As proving is like controlled stress, and this way of view to the life is much easy. Really, it and very helpful. And no one human had COVID in our group. Yes, because they look at the life through the proving's view, through the proving's crystal, through the proving's prism. This is proving's therapy. This is type of psychotherapy.
The whole
it's
process,
life hack.
The whole process, what you talked about changing, is what we can look into as the evolution of miasm, which changes every day. So that is where you start from your developmental to acquired miasm. So that is how this change can be related to the same concept of the evolution of miasm.
Yes, you are right.
There is a big chance. We people, we are given the chance to be able to make decisions more than maybe animals can. And to make decisions in the sense of nature, the better you know nature, the better you get to know nature, the better you can make your decisions. And so I was thinking when I looked at 2020, I thought I learned again a lot about myself, my first reactions, then in summer, then in autumn, was always a bit different to the whole thing. And the knowledge I got by being a lot in systemic works, where you get to know themes which you did not mean to have to do with and got to know. And so it's as the provings, it's always a chance to get a deeper understanding and therefore hopefully make better decisions. It's great. It's a great look at it. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Through the proving, we go to subconsciousness. To the subconsciousness. We deep down to our deep structure of our brain and understand of our mammals and reptiles factors. Yes, teacher, and go up to our neocortex. Yes, neocortex for understanding of our structure, for understanding of our human goals, of our human truth through subconsciousness.
Right.
And we make it through the proving. This is some controlled stress. Yes, really, it's very interesting. And that's why the remedies from viruses is appeared to us, yes, because now whole world is in the proving of COVID virus. This is maybe this is informational about virus. Maybe there is no virus at all. Yes, maybe. Yes, this is only information, but we have information about COVID virus, and this information is suppressed. All of people through all of the world, yes, is suppressed. And this leads to the kind of reaction, less compositor, like arsenicum, etc. But we have all in the proving of COVID information. And this is interesting process. What is the future of this proving? And if we have to the consciousness of this information, we will be free.
I think if, we've got strong immune systems, given time, we will develop the answer. And I have a big interest in human milk, and there's been a lot of pilot studies come out this year of the use of human milk to fight COVID, because mothers are producing antibodies in their milk. Breastfeeding rates are going through the roof. Mothers are relactating because they see the value in protecting their baby. So if the breast is able to make the antibodies, certainly our, total immune system's capable of doing it. And I do think that, given 12 months, this will be all over. I do think that this will naturally die out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The next one will take it.
The next one will be coming, definitely. I remember when COVID first got modern, I asked Neil what the virus says, what his purpose is. And Neil told me the virus said to him, I am the pressure and I can enhance it in case you don't wake up. Mm-hmm. That was very nice to hear.
That's a very nice way to put it. Really very nice.
Yeah. And if you think about waking up, which is the thing to do, it's about not being manipulated by fear anymore. It's about getting the connection to the divine and be free and see that you're free, no matter what's going on around.
And also not manipulated by government and authority.
Wonderful.
But I absolutely love what, sorry, you go.
Yeah, sorry. It's very beautiful not to be manipulated by the fear. Beautiful word, thank you. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say just how entranced I have been to hear what you're doing in Moscow, Svetlana, with the psychotherapy work, with using the proving as a psychotherapy tool. I just think that is fantastic. What a wonderful thing to do. If we can get enough of that information and prove nosodes around, around the COVID, whatever it is, even if we were proving influenza A or B, whatever it is that we were actually proving, and we could really have people to be able to tune in as they're doing that proving. That's magic. That is absolutely magical what you're doing. It's just wonderful.
Oh, thank you very much. And I would like to say we arranged an international proving, online international proving of digital remedy, sound remedy. This is digital form of remedy, digital form. This is polychrest. And the information about this proving is in the site of Provings to the World. This is site in English, in Russian, and in German. And you can read this information about this proving, and we will arrange such proving, international proving online in the future, and you can take part in this. We are open to all of the world, really. The site is Provings to the World, Provings to the World. This is
such a metaphysical process, doing a trituration, such a metaphysical process. Just working physically with the mortar and the pestle and with the sugar and the milk and seeing the patterns. And because I've done a few trituration provings and they're very powerful, especially in a group.
Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. Provings Point Space. The name of the site, Provings Point Space. Provings to the world. Okay.
Yes, and one other interesting thing is, Dr. Michael Yakir from Israel.
Israel.
Yeah.
Israel.
working about the ancient plants at the moment, and she's looking for provers for the ancient plants because we don't have enough information. And all the ancient plants, they got through many extinction level events. They know how to survive. They know how to connect to the divine. They know about change, deep changes. So it may be that we will need to use those ancient plants more often in homeopathy, especially the conifers or something.
Yes.
Really connect you to the divine.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
She just said sometime back, change is the only constant.
Change is the only constant, yeah.
So that's what she said. The more they change, the more they stay the same.
It's very interesting to hear you talking, and it seems that we are going to go through a very interesting, colorful 21 with a lot of spectrum of good and bad and easy and not easy. But it will be a very, very bright spectrum. And we can choose. We can choose from the variety. We can choose where we want to be.
But
whether you want to be on the side of awareness and consciousness or on the side of fear.
Yeah, have to stay very positively focused.
But COVID will also throw its shadows into the future when we realize what is happening now to the youth, to the children, how they are imprinted with the information from COVID. And there I think we'll have to do with this generation also a lot of work to get them free again from this COVID imprints.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see at the end of it how it all comes out in Sweden, because they took such a different approach. You know, the children all went to school and they pretty much, you know, protected the elderly, but society functioned. So it will be very interesting to see how they progress going forward compared to the rest of the world.
Yes, it's an interesting thing, because on one hand, they were very open. On the other hand, they're very strict, and you can't treat children till the age of 8 or 10 in Sweden with homeopathy or natural things. You're not allowed. So very interesting.
It's got to be scientific and proven.
And when you talked about it, I just was thinking of Sakis Ogonji from Kenya, whose school was closed down. He has a big private school, and he tried to give a lot of people work. And in the end, the only thing he did manage was giving support to the parents and to the pupils and sending teachers on bicycles in the villages to at least give some education so that they don't lose a year or more.
Yeah.
And back off from education again.
There's been so many rites of passage been lost this year, you know, right across the board with children. You know, big things like graduation ceremonies, weddings, funerals, significant birthdays. You know, it's been hard for people. These things matter.
Definitely.
This time has helped us to reorganize ourselves, whether it is personally, whether it is family, whether it is our town or country or the world. Because everything was, we were taking nature for granted. And in fact, we got this as an opportunity to introspect and look into ourselves. The Gellert's poem, which Dr. Hahnemann had written before he coined the word Oedipus in the first edition, the truth we mortals seek, us blessed to make and keep, the all-wise slightly covered over, but did not bury deep. So that truth, which we always knew, which was prevailing around us, but which we had taken for granted, whether it is hygiene, whether it is personal immunity, whether it is regulation of mode and living, the diet and regimen regulation, everything was taken for granted. So these times, COVID times, helped us to introspect and go back to our roots, which our elders, the elder generations used to take care of, and which we have neglected and our children have neglected it more. So these were the times wherein we went back to our roots and we tried to look into these regulations and we brought back. So in fact, nature brought us back on tracks and towards a very positive to 2021, because we all have understood the importance of immunity. We all have understood the importance of relations, and we all have understood what our priorities should be. Economical failure, financial insecurity, all that can be taken care of. But we have understood that the improved wordings, why it is called as health is wealth.
It's interesting, at the very end of the organon, Hahnemann gave a lot of emphasis to hygiene.
Yeah.
You know, and this is what
Diet
we're giving a lot of attention to now.
Yes.
And, I mean, in that broader sense.
So we understand that how our Dr. Master Hahnemann had that foresightedness about, he talked about everything from auxiliary modes of treatment. So during those times, what was auxiliary mode is the massages and the water baths and the magnetotherapy. But today also we give equal importance to auxiliary modes in the terms of acupressure, Reiki, and yoga. So all these things help as auxiliary modes towards giving a very positive health to people around us.
Yeah.
And health is something that you have yourself to take care of and not wait for a doctor to do it.
Yes, definitely. Doctors do tell all these things, but patients normally implement these things for 1 or 2 days, and once they are better, they don't cater to their own natural immunity. They always come and tell you that, no, you give us some medicine, don't tell us what to do at home. We have come to you, you give us medicine, and that is what is to be done. So now they have understood the importance of natural immunity. So now those things what we used to tell patients 10 years back, at least they were courteous enough to call up and tell doctor, now that is, you have told us to drink hot water. See, now we are drinking hot water. So people are implementing what we have been telling them about the importance of diet and regimen. So now at least they are implementing. Whether it is fear or not, it hardly makes a difference. As a prevention of health or a friend, philosopher and guide, our mission is being accomplished. Whether it is out of fear, no problem. But things are being better, so it is enough.
It's easier now to get people to meditate than before, I realized.
Yes.
It's a lot easier. They're more open.
Yes.
At the beginning of our talk here, Gautam, gave us a lovely prayer to actually acknowledge the pain and suffering that people have gone through this year. And Patricia has just been reminding us of, some elements of the suffering that have been, for many, many people, like it's a huge, broad sort of swathe, like it's a broad brushstroke of suffering that's gone on. And yet the energy of our call today is highly optimistic. So like there's this extraordinary level of optimism within, the group here, looking at this, because, it's all opportunity. It's all go forward. So we recognize the suffering that has preceded. We recognize the suffering that exists at the moment. And we recognize the opportunity of the ways out of the suffering running forward. And, it's very interesting. Like you can't deny what Patricia and Gautam are talking about. Like it's been an extraordinary level of suffering, that's gone on, and coordinated suffering as well.
Yeah, and the breaking down of the old ways, which from a homeopathic point of view, we call syphilitic miasm. And that's about destruction, breaking down. But of course, from the phoenix will rise from the ashes. So, of course, that's the other face of the syphilitic miasm. It is about renewal, it's about rebirth, it's about a new direction. at birth there is a coming in through that portal of the cervix to a new life, and at death you go out through that portal again to another life, and it is a portal, it's a doorway. And we've just had a big conjunction last week on the 21st. It was quite significant. And we are at the dawn of, people are talking about it, a great awakening. So I think that there is going to be big changes in humanity going forward, and positive changes.
And in the meantime, a beautiful collapse. And then, you remember the film of Mikis Theodorakis? When Anthony Quinn was down at the beach dancing.
Oh, Zorba.
Talking about what a beautiful collapse.
Right, I'd forgotten that.
It's about that scene. I guess this is what 21 is about. Dancing and watching how beautiful the collapse is. Neil, you wanted to say something. I spoke over you.
No, it's okay. I'm just very interested to, hear what people have, what the general feelings are around that, the sort of optimistic view of the change. It's just really interesting how you're all observing this.
I also observe that some people seem to think that it will just rain down from heaven, the change. And I think we also have to stay clean, that it'll have to come out of the inner of us to outside, out of each one's inner to the outside. That it will not just come down like a rainfall.
Well, what's interesting to me is that the experience of 2020 has actually given us such a cleanly described suffering bundle, like a bundle of suffering. And it's so clear and it's so cleanly described. And in recent decades, we haven't had such cleanly described suffering. And so we've got this group suffering, and then we've got the suffering of the individuals, which is so consistent with this group suffering. And it literally is, in Australia or, perhaps in Europe as well, you've got to go back 70 years before you can actually see another event of such consistent suffering, where the suffering is just so, consistent. I just, like it's a remarkable process, that way in which all that diversity of suffering of individuals got channeled into something which was so clearly, congruent with it, like there was so much congruence in that suffering. And as Bettina says, the only way out of suffering is to work from within. Like the only way to work with suffering is to do the work yourself. And sure, like you folk, you homeopaths have got wonderful ways of actually assisting people to do that. But at the end of the day, the shift has to be from the individual. It actually has to be from the individual. So, quite why the divine is actually delivering us up this consistency of suffering at the moment, for us to, as humanity, to actually sort of access that is anybody's guess. I don't have the answer to that question, but it's certainly interesting to watch.
I think the fact that we have the media and social media very much, in the foreground during this, I think you were referring to the Great Depression and the Second World War when you said in this country, the level of suffering, and that's right. But if we didn't have the media and we didn't have social media in this last 12 months, would the level of suffering been as much? Would we have known about what was going on all around the world? I think not. I think the level of fear wouldn't have been as high.
Exactly.
We fanned the flames ourselves lots of ways, or certainly the media has. Yeah.
The pros and cons of digital exposure to news traveling. So it is fake news also travels, or in fact, fake news travels faster than the real news. So it was pros and cons for everything.
Turning it off. Sick of it. Sick of it. Yeah. I don't want to hear about any more new cases or how many people are being tested, or you just go, oh, come on.
That is what keeps up. Neil was talking about optimism, or we are positive vibrations in this group. But that is how we have to channelize our energies. Because if we feel that we are evolved and we understand the power of vibes and positive vibrations, so we may carry these vibrations to people around us. So we have to first look into ourselves and channelize our resources and our energies towards positivity. And that is how people around us can benefit from that and then grow along with us.
Yeah. Yeah. Our reality is shaped by our focus and our thoughts. And we all believe in the 100th monkey syndrome, I'm sure.
Yes, definitely.
So let's create brighter and better reality. Let's make 21 a breakthrough in awareness. It still is possible. We are at the beginning. Svetlana, how is it in Russia with the mass media? It's the same?
The same situation in mass media in Russian, yes, and this is very separating two votes very separating to each other. This vote of real life and the vote of mass media, yes, and I say to my patients not to watch video, not to watch TV, only feel yourself and feel your family and feel your closest circumstances, yes, and make your own decision, no more. Yes, because this is very deeply pressed of brain and pressed of mental press and emotion press, and this is no option for discovering, I think. And what I see in the future of 21, I see to spread the information about homeopathy in the people, not only in the patients, but in the people too, because the view of homeopathy have a very, very wide position of the life, and we need to go from the material basis of life, yes, and we need to go to the non-material substances. You said about spectrum, you said I think about small life like viruses and bacteria, yes, and I think this is the view of God. To connect us with information about viruses, because the virus is changed our brain. All viruses changed our brain and our thoughts, really. And I have one patient now. She said me, I have the center of my life, and the center is fear. Yes. Can you see it? She understood that she has center of her life is fear. Yes, and this fear is organized. Yes, all her life. It's crazy how human can be organized by fear, and the virus can change our brain. The virus can arrange us to the new road without fear. Really, what do we fear? What do we fear? What about fear we have? It's very crazy. Really, it's a very crazy view of life. What do we fear? What about influencers? about viruses, small viruses, yes, the people can adaptate to the all viruses of this world and no more anyone, I think.
Definitely a difference whether the center of a life is fear or trust.
Yeah. Yes, you are right. Trust or fear is this different planets.
Okay. We have a commentation
Let we trust.
From the school of Rajan Shankaran, and she writes that Camphor 1M was very much recommended by Rajan Shankaran, and that he also recommended reading, connecting to the divine, reading the Gita, and stay away from news.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, same procedure.
It was kind of interesting in some of the earlier group discussions we homeopaths had, when Rajan was, doing that kind of work with camphor, and then to hear others say that in their area that they were finding different remedies were coming up, and other people talking about the different stages that people were going through. It was a very much it was a very fragmented, there was no genus epidemicus. That's really kind of unheard of in homeopathy, that we don't have, for something that's supposed to be a virus that's consistent and, is diagnosed by a PCR test, and we didn't have a genus epidemicus. So that's really weird.
I think what we have discussed earlier, it was catering more to the fear and symptoms of the patient. We can say superficially acting, more related to the specific remedies for that particular condition. So again, what I had discussed in one of my previous lectures, it was like practicing allopathy with homeopathic medicine. So the symptoms were catered to and not actually looking into genus epidemic.
The constitutional treatment became very important.
Agreed, but ma'am, during those times, it was more catering to the anxiety and the fear and the symptoms, for preventing them from going into deterioration. So more catering to palliation rather than thinking about any kind of cures.
Mm.
So therefore, it was suggested on different levels, like Crotalus was told, then Merck's cyanitis was discussed, so Baptisia was discussed. So it was more catering to the symptoms rather than genus epidemicus. What actually we should look into even now. Like when we talk about a very good concept of COVID, actually it is being proved worldwide. So the data can still be collected, and from these provings, which are actually the symptoms of the patient, and then come down to genus epidemic. So even now, if you look into the drugs of choice, would be arsenic, bryonia, these kind of drugs which will be looking. It was a
certainly they were mentioned lots. Yeah.
And the combinations with arsenicum, like China arsenicosum, Natrum arsenicosum.
Natrum arsenicum. Natrum arsenicum would be a very nice drug.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and then you have to think of that each coronavirus is they are changelings.
Yes.
We know it in veterinary science. They are changelings. From moment to moment, they change. If this is what we are seeing now in the post-COVID syndrome, it's very changeable.
Right.
Remedies change very often.
That is where the tubercular miasm was discussed last.
Mm-hmm.
The changeability.
So we are near to the end of our discussion. I would like to hear the final words of everybody. It was a very nice discussion. I thank you very much.
The topic, you had changed the topic, you left out politics. So that was a brilliant move from your side. Because first.
No, we can't go there.
I didn't leave it out because nobody did talk about it.
We've got an interesting week coming up.
Yeah.
We can talk about politics another time. We now have the change of the American president coming up and so on. So it will be a lot to discuss in the future. It will be an interesting year where we can see things we did not really think of.
Before we end out of this, I'm sorry, before we end out of this whole discussion, now, like what we said, no, what I thought about never well since 2020. Similarly, one more important factor that we'll have to look into are material books, maybe, or later on as organon text also. Media, media being acting as an obstacle to cure.
Mm-hmm. Element from media consumption.
Yeah, media, not element from media, but media acting as an obstacle to cure. Like people want to be positive. People understand when we talk to them, people understand the logic when we explain them that you are having, understand this as only a viral fever, and don't succumb to your fear. And this is what you have to do. You will be symptomatically better also, because COVID tests are not to be relied on. There are a number of cases of false positive cases which have been reported and false negative cases. So the report or the test, so-called investigation test, cannot be depend on or cannot be relied on. So even if when we explain them and when they go after meeting you, but these so-called bombings, the cluster bombings of media messages that comes up on their WhatsApp or Telegram or Instagram or these chat issues or emails, so that act as a obstacle to permanent cure. So again, that patient goes into a relapse of paranoia, what Neil experienced, what Bettina spoke about, and the detachment and the depression, what Patricia told about. So these obstacles to cure are actually the media messages which have been bombarding them on their cellular mobiles. So I think exposure to media will be considered as an obstacle to cure, which will be added in the next chapter of the deflected current. Maybe.
So you're thinking of adding it in the rubric to ailments from, so obstacles from coffee and abuse of strong smelling substances like camphor and mint.
Exactly.
Oh,
As
I see.
stress, like when we have obstacles to cure with stress, mode of living, lack of sleep, lack of physical exercise. So maybe that in that same sentence, we may be adding overexposure to media.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
Well, I'm going to go next. Look, thank you so much, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear, all of the things that you've had to offer, and it's a great privilege to be part of this group. So thank you.
Thank you very much for the wonderful discussion that we had today, and from across, from Australia, from Germany, all the topics, especially Russia, because we don't get much news from Russia. So thank you very much of sharing about the psychological aspect and the provings that has been done over there. And it is, I would rather on the Telegram group, if you can please forward and the links what you told about proving of sound. So that is a very interesting topic that to read into or to look into. Thank you very much. Have a very positive 2021 and have abundance in everything that we do.
Yes, I would agree with that. Wishing everybody well for the year, and just keep the positive focus going, and I'm sure we'll get through all of this, and it'll just become a nightmare soon enough. It's that easy. You can wake up.
Svetlana?
Thank you very, very much for our discussion, and thank you for your thoughts and for your mental states and for your emotion. Thank you very much. Very, very positive. And I think this is very progressive to arrange such a communication party. And thank you for organizer. Thank you very much. And I wish you and wish of all of us to meet maybe in usually to meet usually and to meet more often and to discuss. And this is like sharing information and sharing our energies, and this is very useful in our life. I hope in it. Thank you very much.
I want to leave everybody with the wish to have the courage to go through the emotions which come up, to go through everything which COVID brings up, and not to lose the contact with the people, the contact with the divine. And so stay positive, yes.
Thank you. And I want to remind everybody on the humorous Greek approach of dancing sirtaki when things collapse. And have a nice time watching. And
Thank
for
you.
all of you who did not watch Alexis Sorbas for Mikis Theodorakis, please watch it.
Yeah,
It's
beautiful.
really an important piece of art. So thank you everybody for being here. I hope we will meet soon again. We definitely will invite you for the next live talks. And Happy New Year and a nice, beautiful Sunday for everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.